Hi friends, this is Angela, Wildvioletsart. I'm not doing my face today because I'm recovering from COVID and you don't want to be looking at all that. I do sound a little nasally and I apologize for that, but I really wanted to get this video out to you. I had a lot of fun making this swap, this card for my backstage swap, and it was just so pretty. I wanted it to be, it was for a wedding anniversary bridal shower swap, and I wanted it to look like lace and a bridal bouquet. So as you can see, I used a number of different things, but the primary item that I used was the paper Florist dies. Now you're wondering maybe where you've seen all the flowers. So this is not one that has a stamp set with it. It's just back here in the back of the annual catalog. So this is the 2023-24 annual catalog, and they're paper Florist dies, and they're just standalone. They are shown here with another stamp set calling Good Feelings, but you can see that there's so much you can do with it. And I love this picture. Anytime there's like tons of florals, 3D florals especially, I just get super excited. So I still haven't used it very much. I just used it for the one swap. Just so you guys know, I've been out for a while, for about 4 months, trying to get my house ready to sell, then packed up. We moved to Minnesota from California, so it was a big move, a lot of unpacking, and then getting used to a new work schedule. I've really not had a lot of time to do creating. So this is just a really beautiful stamp or a card that just has all kinds of 3D flowers on it. It goes into the envelope really nicely, and it can be mailed, and so it doesn't take any special, because it doesn't have any 3D embellishments on it. I think this would easily just go in with a regular stamp. Now this is the paper Florist dies, and as you can see, there's lots of other options that I didn't use, but I used these flowers, and these flowers. So these ones are the big white ones. These right here are the little daisies. These right here, they're almost like orchids. They're 5 petals. They're really beautiful, but I staggered them. And then I used the centers, the little centers. I used the little tulips, and of course these two, and then these are more of the centers, but this is primarily the centers of the flowers that I used. So for the background though, what I did is I put a piece of vellum over the top of, this is Gorgeous Garden dies, and I used this die here for the background. So you can kind of see what I wanted it to look like was lace, and the vellum just goes over the die, and it makes for a really beautiful, subtle card that just looks like it should be given to a bride or a bride-to-be. And then I did use this little bit of foliage from the Cheerful Daisy dies. And then for my sentiment, I used the tiny little flag from the Countryside Corners. So those are the dies that I used, and I'll list all this so that you have all this information. So let's just put it together. So you can see here, this is the vellum, and this is the Gorgeous Garden dies. And it would be really pretty on top, but I thought it would just kind of take away from the flowers, and just giving it a little bit of something just kind of added to it. Okay. These are all the parts and pieces, and I just used an A2 card. What I want to do first is I want to add a little bit of color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, the color that I used was Lost Lagoon, and I'm going to add just a little bit of color to the center of this vellum, because as you can see, it just kind of adds a little bit of element to it. And I'm going to add it to my envelope as well. So I had a little bit there. So I just kind of keep it lightly on there and just kind of keep going around and around until I get the area that I want. Now most of this gets covered up by the foliage, but just enough peeks out that it just kind of adds a little something. And then I like to add a little bit to the corner of my envelope. Never a naked envelope, as they say. Because this is primarily about the dies, it just kind of gives it a really pretty, elegant look. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to do, we need to do this first. I'm using Bubble Bath for the pink in the middle of these flowers. So these flowers here are the orchid looking flowers, and I used vellum, and I'm going to use a sponge dauber to just add a little bit of color to the middle of these flowers. I'm going to just set these aside because they need to dry a little bit before they are assembled. Okay, so these are really pretty little flowers, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of glue and then put this center on it. Now this is the small and the large. Let me just get the dies out real quick so you can see them. I love it that Stampin' Up! Did this so you can do so many at the same time. See, 2 of these are large, 2 of them are small, and I just staggered them on there. And then the centers were cut out. And I used some paper that is part of the... Oh shoot, I'm trying to find it. Oh, it's part of their online exclusive paper, and I made this gift bag with it, and I'm not remembering the paper right now, but you could use lemon lolly or any other, because I wanted it to be thin. I didn't want it to be very thick. And then this little daisy, I'm just going to stack it one right on top of the other. Then I'm staggering these so that each one of them points a different direction. You see what I did there? Okay, so I don't know if you guys have this foam piece from Stampin' Up. If you don't, and if you happen to have the large stamp blocks kit, I saved the blocks, and this works too. And what you can do, or just a piece of foam, what I did is I took the flower and then just a pen with the ballpoint obviously away, and then I just push down and it just pops the petals up really pretty. So really easy. Okay, now this right here is the center of the flower, but I want it to, I don't know if you've noticed that with daisies, they tend to cone. They're like a cone, and so I want it to be going the other way. So I've turned this little center upside down, and then I'm using my pick tool with the cap on, and I'm just gonna push down so that when I'm done, it's popped up and you can see that it's 3D. And then I'll just put a little mini embellish or Stampin' Dimensional in the middle of it. And then I'm going to just place it on this daisy. So you can see when you're done, it just has this really pretty 3D effect to it. Okay. All right. Now these were cut out with the Lost Lagoon, and this is the bubble gum. So these are the little tulips, and that's this die and these dies. And it just goes together really easily. Doesn't take much. I just used glue dots to add them, or you can use glue. And this is also Lost Lagoon, and this is that foliage from the Cheerful Daisies. And then I did these in Pool Party, these 2 leaves, and more of these little flower centers. Those were done with that paper, the same paper. And let me just show you what that paper looks like, so you can kind of see where I got the 2 colors. You can see this is the color of the paper, but I used the back side, and it has a really pretty pink and a cool yellow. So I used the yellow for these, and I used the pink for these little orchid-like flowers. Okay, so for these flowers, I'm just going to put these together real quick. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger them so that each petal, you can see that each petal is going a different direction. And just let it sit there for a second. And then I've got the little center. And then I'll set these aside and let them dry. Whoops. Okay, and then I've got this little flag, Sentiment. And again, I'm using the, these were for Countryside corner dies, and I just used the middle flag because I liked the really small Sentiment. Now the Sentiment I'm using is from Sentimental Park, and it just says best wishes. So that's the one I'm going to use. And it's not one that you can stamp first and then cut it out, because you're not going to see where your sentiment is. As you can tell, it's a solid die. And so I had to cut it out first, and then I can put my little best wishes on there. And because these are photopolymer, super easy, and you can get it right where you want it. Okay. All right, now we can start assembling the card. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue on the back of this card. And actually I'm going to use, I get these from Amazon. A friend gave this to me. And it helps you just kind of not get too much in one place. And I'm just trying to keep it as close to the middle as possible. And then I'm just going to randomly put some of these on the leaves to keep it down. It's like I dipped my finger in the ink there. You can tell I'm a crafter by the ink on my hands. Okay. All right, now for the vellum, I don't know if you have them or not, but I have all of these little glue dots that I get from kits and Paper Pumpkin and such. And so what I do is I tend to save them because I like them when I'm using them with vellum, because the little glue dots don't really show up through the vellum. It's not noticeable, at least to me. And then I'm going to add a few more in the middle so that the vellum adheres to the leaves and you can kind of see the leaves underneath. If you don't have fingernails that work like that, you can use your pick a tool, use the little tip or the spatula to take off these little covers on the glue dots. Okay, and that should be it. Now I've got my color on the vellum, and I'm gonna start so this is on the bottom. Now I noticed that my vellum is just a wee bit longer than my card, so I'm just going to trim that off. All right. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place these two foliage pieces. I'm going to bring the finished card over here so you can see that as well. And I've got my little tweezers. When I'm placing fine things, I seem to appreciate having the tweezers to help me place them. So I want this one facing down, and this one I'm going to wait until I've placed some of my other flowers. Now I'm using the mini dimensionals again, and I'm just going to put one on the back of each of the flowers. So this one I want about here. And then these are glued together now, and I forgot that I didn't so I want this to be over far enough that it's not hanging off the card too much. I want this to be 3D as well, so I'm going to do that before I add the dimensional. Okay, once I've placed those two, then I can place this one. I'm going to place it so that it's going in a different, petals aren't all the same. And if any of your petals are laying down the way you don't want them to, then you can just plump them up again on this little daisy. And then I'm going to put this down first, and then I'm going to put this over it, because I think that the dimensionals help hold it in place. And once it's glued down and it's dry, then it's not going anywhere. But until then, sometimes you can get frustrated because things move around a little bit. Okay, so I want this about right here. And then I'm going to add in the last of my little pink flowers. And now I can add in some of my foliage. Okay, so I want a dimensional here, and then I'm going to add glue down here. And this will just pop up the end of the leaf. Same thing on the back of this one. I'm just going to add a dimensional at the tip. Glue down here. And then I'm going to add this in. Okay, same thing with my tulips here. I'm going to add the mini dimensionals on each one of the blossoms. And then a little glue down here. And then I'm just going to kind of position it right there. Okay, so now Best Wishes will go here, and I'm using the Lost Lagoon ribbon that Stampin' Up! Is selling in their annual catalog. And this can be found on page 144, and it's the Lost Lagoon bordered ribbon. So just a little bit of a, looks like a linen ribbon. Now I only want it a little bit longer than my sentiment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim a little bit. And then using something you don't really care about, I'm going to take some of this ribbon and fray it at the end. Nothing's fancy, just a little bit of frayed ribbon. Okay. So I want it to overlap like this, so I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to use the little mini dimensionals again and place 3 of them. And then place it just here on the bottom. Now I'm using some of these little pastel adhesive backed sequins. These things fly everywhere, so just as a warning, they never seem to end up where they're supposed to be. And you can see I've used the blue the least. Okay, so I want these little pink ones in the middle of my pink flowers. And then the gold ones I'm putting in the middle of these 2. And then I'll use one of the gold ones here, a full-size pink one here, and then a full-size gold one here. So super easy card once you've got all the pieces cut out, and I know it's rather daunting, and but just a really beautiful card for a bridal shower or a wedding. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll put all the description in below the video, so be sure to check it out. And I hope you have a lot of fun. Again, this is Angela with Wildvioletsart, and thank you for joining me.